Hello and welcome to the part 2 of the Inner Thoughts podcast.
Session 2.
Session 2.
I've decided it's sessions.
Sessions, not
I
parts.
didn't tell you that, sorry.
Okay, let's start that again then, shall we?
Just leave it.
Welcome to session 2 of the Inner Thoughts podcast with myself, David, and Daisy, who you probably now know from her own Inner Avenue podcast for those regular listeners out there. So yeah, we're just having it's now the new year. We're sort of well into it now. January's nearly very much done, which I'm really pleased about because January is usually quite cold and depressing. So
It hasn't been too cold actually though, I don't think. I did buy myself like a woolly hat because I was like, oh, I want to look cute, and then it was already too late almost. Like we're at the end of
it started
January
actually getting
now.
warm again. Yeah, I should have
Yeah.
probably bought it back in November when it started getting cold.
Yeah,
But
I'm not.
no,
that
it was
organised.
quite nice the weekend though, wasn't it? Weather was decent the weekend.
Yeah.
Actually quite sunny. It felt like spring.
Yeah, we had a really nice little walk to town as well, didn't we, the other day?
Yeah, wandered through the city centre, saw some of the developments that are kind of happening and not happening in some cases.
I was actually quite shocked how many empty shops there are on the high street in Southampton.
It is pretty crazy.
Like some of the places that I thought had been kind of got going, like Revolution de Cuba or whatever it's called on the corner, the one that's got the really cool mural, that's gone.
Yeah. And they're all big units as well. It's not like small
and it's
shops. They're all big. I mean,
yeah.
You know, you've only got to look at where Debenhams is, which is that's a huge site.
Yeah.
And then of course across the road from there, you've got what they're supposed to be doing with Bargate, which is seemingly just ground to a halt.
It looks like a really sad game of like Connects. Do you remember Connects? Where you like join the bits
Minecraft?
up?
That's
It's
an
like
unfinished Minecraft.
someone just like propped it up, did the Connects, and then just left it there. Like there's nothing going on.
Yeah, it just looks like a level from Call of Duty. It's like a sort of slightly depressing, apocalyptic.
That's what all of town feels like, isn't it? Depressing and apocalyptic.
But no, like they said, we had a bit of a I'd like to say creative, but it was a work weekend. We did some bits and pieces, didn't we? And went
That
down
sounds so sad, doesn't it? We had a work
weekend. Well, we went to a place called Room 2 in Southampton, which is down towards Town Quay for anybody who knows the place. It's primarily a kind of hotel, I guess you would call it. They specialise in this. Well, I say specialise. Their thing is their rooms, or they're advertised as being like a home from home.
Yeah.
So they're almost like little mini apartments. Each one's very different. So you'd have like family rooms, for example, that've got bunk beds. Obviously, you'll have little suites with normal doubles.
But I thought you meant like sweets, as in sweets.
No, it's not sweets. Like free meals.
You get a mint on your pillow.
You probably get you get your own little kitchen. It's even better, so you can actually cook your own. But what's one of the really great things about the place, and why I go down there quite a lot, is they've got a really lovely like lounge sort of communal workspace down the bottom level, and it's done really well. It's very chilled, it's very relaxed. They're all really nice down there.
It's kind of like IKEA, like
It's like an IKEA showroom.
No, yeah, it kind of is, but like in a good way. Like there's no one wandering around and looking at you doing your work.
Yeah, I mean it's it's very comfortable, isn't it? It's well furnished. It's quite well designed. It's nicely
free.
well lit. You got there's a sort of parkland right out the front as well, so you don't you can actually fool yourself into thinking you might be in Central Park rather than button into Southampton.
Central Park might be a push.
There might be a bit of a push, but you can pretend. But it's usually quite a peaceful workspace. It wasn't so much on Saturday. I think there was a wedding or stag do or something going on. It got a bit noisy, but thankfully we had our headphones, so we were able to concentrate.
Yeah, luckily we both have noise cancelling kind of enabled headphones because it does get quite busy in there. But I think
that was an exception. Yeah, it's not usually.
I think it's because there was a cruise ship in, and I think people were either getting on or getting off the cruise ship. I think that's what it was.
But it's very popular with certainly the students
Yeah.
who live down and around that area.
Didn't you
They do
say
use it
the
quite a
other
lot.
day someone like rocked up with a whole architecture set up?
Yeah, I was there the weekend before. I was on the Saturday before. I was down there with a friend, and yeah, there was a young guy in this. They've got like a little boardroom type area that curtains off, but that was all opened up with big tables. And he had a full architectural set. He was there with blueprints and a compass and
Oh god.
pens and yeah,
That's a
like
commitment
full
to
on
move all of that stuff.
workspace basically, but quite impressive.
That paper's
He was
a
well
pain
into
in the
it.
butt.
But yeah, if you go down there with your laptop or an iPad, it's really nice. You've got a little bar area there. You can get a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, or
Yeah.
whatever.
And the best part, other than it being free, is they don't give you a side eye for sitting there for too long.
Yeah,
Like they
I
might
mean,
in
we were
other
there for
cafes. Because
we
we
were
spent pretty much all day in
we were there
didn't
at
we?
least 4, if not 5 hours down there.
Yeah.
It was a quite a long old afternoon.
Yeah, I had a sandwich in my bag and I was like sneaking bites of it because I didn't want to look like
We
one
both
of those
did.
people who
We both took a
comes
sneaky
in with their own food.
Yeah, we both took a sneaky little lunch in there, didn't we? So
I saw other people doing it though, it wasn't just us.
yeah, I mean, I had a little beer there, so as long as you're spending a bit of money there, they don't mind too much.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's really nice about it is you don't have to be staying there. You don't have to be using the rooms. You can just turn up, use the space, and
Yeah.
I think as long as you do, you put a little bit of money behind their bar, they're quite happy.
And as we say, probably in like later topics that we've got to talk about in this episode, and just generally like places are fast disappearing in Southampton, so it's nice to have somewhere that's got a bit more of a charm.
Well, it's just got a bit of personality, and those sort of places in Southampton are unfortunately dying out. There's one or two little hidden gems, but yeah, like Dave's saying, we'll get onto a few more of those a bit later on. But one of the things, obviously, about that particular area of town, there's quite a lot of development. I mean, we've already been just mentioned about Bargate being sort of half built, seemingly running out of funding. I seem to remember there was a bit of an issue regarding security. There was some sort of fine because of health and safety. They couldn't afford to pay the fine, so they ended up closing the doors on it, basically.
Oh, is that why?
That's pretty much why it's been stopped. So whether they've now found an investor to pick it back up again.
It used to be the place to go. When I was a teenager, it had like Shakeaway and it had the goth shop.
Yeah, I remember the Sega kind of arcade they had in there.
Yeah.
I used to go there quite a lot back in the day. But
yeah, it was quite like a bit different. It was quite cool, wasn't it? And it had that
I think there was like
American shop.
I'm pretty sure it had like was it Quicksilver? I'm sure there's some like surf brands and things like that were in there.
Route 1 was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite cool. I mean, I think when it's done, I mean, I see, looking at the plans, I think they're planning to, sort of posh up a little bit. I think their big dream
when it's done.
When it's done,
That
yeah,
could
if it
be
will
a
ever
long
get done,
time.
it's certainly going to be a few more years. But I think the general idea is that when the cruise ships come in, rather than at the moment they're sort of everybody jumps onto a coach and goes to Winchester because it's nicer than Southampton, is to actually get them to spend some money in Southampton.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to try and put some, a few more like luxury brands in there. I seem to remember in the early days of the original plans there was going to be a Vivian Westwood store and an Ivy cafe, but whether it's going to still be that level, who knows? But
yeah, the thing that concerns me about that as well is it's great and it would be good to have that kind of business in Southampton for cruise ships and people like that, but then it's also creating opportunities and spaces for local people and local initiatives and small business and things like that.
I mean, the rent space will be
exactly, yeah. Is it gonna just sell out all of town to people with loads of money?
Who knows? I mean, I think usually what happens with those sort of new developments is they'll often do a deal on the space rent on the spaces. So you probably find when it first opens, there may well be a few independent places because they'll get a good deal on the rent space to fill it. How that'll ever work long term, who knows?
Yeah.
But what ends up being quite interesting is there's now discussions of revamping Town Quay, which is it is a little bit tired, as we know, down that end where Old Orleans used to be years and years and years ago, and obviously got the Red Jet. It was right at the very end of Town Quay.
Oh, okay.
Obviously got the Red Jet terminal there.
Red Funnel, yeah.
And Red Funnel, which is sort of more on the Mayflower Park side. I think the main idea is to use more of that big car park right at the end.
Yeah.
I think that's primarily the space they're going to use. But they're talking about spending, was it £200 million on this new development, which will again be works, office space, residential, as well as the usual units. But you can't help but think, is that something that's going to get built and then be empty because they can't fill it? Or, if they can't even get Bargate off the ground, there's another project lined up. So
it's like a sequence as well, isn't it? Because if they're trying to create a nice place for the cruise ships to pull into and be like, oh, isn't Southampton lovely? It's like you've got all those nice buildings around there, like the Bugle House and Dancing Man, and you go up Bugle Street and then you're kind of spat out.
Absolutely. I mean, they've done a great job on Bugle House is looking great. That got taken over a little while ago. It's been sort of turned now, I think, into more like a little wedding venue. And they've done a great job. Certainly from the exterior, it looks fantastic. I've had the opportunity to look inside. You can kind of see roughly inside. You can see what they've done with drapes and interiors through just having a little bit nosy through the window. But yeah, they've done a really good job. And I think, bigger picture stuff, there is a plan to convert that waterfront into much more sort of, not necessarily luxury, but certainly to make it more appealing when the cruise ships come in. I think Cunard are quite keen to sort of get it to a point where the cruise ships can actually more alongside the actual where Mayflower Park is. So rather than tucked away in the ferry terminals, is to make it a bit of a feature in itself. Not quite like Monaco, obviously.
Like Titanic.
But a similar kind of approach,
Titanic
whereby, it becomes more of a feature. I mean, plans are already underway at Mayflower Park to turn that into now some kind of gardens with a new Spitfire
you
structure.
showed me a picture of that before we started, didn't you? It looks blimmin' awful.
I mean, I think it's almost as tall as Eiffel Tower. It's certainly bigger than the Angel of the North. I seem to remember seeing some sizing. It's going to be big. It's big. I mean, well, it's 6 million quid's worth of big. And already they've had, as well as like obviously council funding and a few private investors, they've also been given a £3 million handshake from Rishi to get it built. So yeah, government funding has already gone into this thing.
You told me about this earlier, didn't you?
And you were like,
Dave said
what?
3 million.
I said 3 mil,
and
Daisy seemed to think I'd said 3 meal.
I thought you were saying as part of this overall cost, they were
going to offer out free meals.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, not free meals, but free meals to the people who are putting it up. I was like, why?
Well,
not that we shouldn't feed them, but
I was going to say the cynical view would be that £3 million would be better feeding people that are on the breadline. But you could argue that rather than a big monstrosity. But I guess if it brings people to the city and tidies things up, but it's very difficult to argue the value of it, really.
This is the thing, isn't it? Like,
it'll end up having graffiti all over it probably.
But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Why to put graffiti on it?
Well, like, it depends what the graffiti is, doesn't it? Because especially in that bit of the common, like the underpass where people are allowed to graffiti, some people do some really cool stuff there, and then other people are just tagging things. But it's like, if that person's a local and they're in and around Southampton, I don't think that, from my personal perspective, I don't think it's necessarily
to
bad.
be honest, that probably would have been a better way of doing something.
Like
would almost make
project.
Rather than having this brushed this kind of like chrome Spitfire sculpture that's going to be in there, just to have something that was more a blank canvas and encourage local artists. I mean, there are, having said that, around the city there are some new things happening. There's at the train, where the train station is. There's the a couple of years ago there was the was it the carbon eating mural?
That was this year, last year, wasn't it?
Was it last year or the year before?
It was
huge. But they've used a paint which apparently eats carbon. How that works, really don't know.
I don't. I think that's just a PR ploy. I
Possibly.
don't think. I think it's some sort of low carbon paint, but it's not like because they painted it with this paint, it's going to suddenly eat up all the carbon in the emissions from all of those buses
There needs
that
to be,
pull into
there needs,
Central Station.
I mean, there
like,
needs to be a bigger picture stuff, which is
what happened to the green roof as well? Like, surely that's a good idea for a carbon
Yeah.
eating.
I mean,
building.
in the city, they are obviously making plans to try and reduce the carbon. There's the pedestrianisation outside the Solent Institute, or Solent University, should I say? It used to be Solent Institute, now it's Solent University. That main road at the front there. Oh, right. Shh. But yeah, that's going to be pedestrianised, which is obviously that's a big old road to push traffic out of. And also the car park by the walls where the old bus depot used to be.
That's changing, isn't it?
That's all going to be turned into landscaped and put into a garden. So basically traffic won't have anywhere to park in that area. So there does seem to be this thing in the city where they're trying to push more cars out of the city centre.
Yeah.
Which can only be, within reason. It's got to be a good thing as long as it doesn't affect commerce. But from an environmental point of view, it's got to be a lot better. We're obviously seeing a lot more of the bikes and scooters around the city, e-scooters and things, which they've rolled out. But yeah, the mural thing, there's quite a few now. There's obviously the new one at the train station, which is there's a football. What was the one that did you mention it? The one that's by the train station on the other side.
Oh yeah.
I can't think who did it.
Poppy Ash designed it, and then a mural, I think it's a national mural painting company, did the actual execution of the design.
Okay.
But yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's nice. I really like that area, and it's partly down to doing like architecture and architecture history, because the grey buildings that everyone hates are on the other side, but they're listed.
Oh, the brutalist apartment block. Yeah.
And not that I don't think that we should like just paint them and be like, oh, it'll just look better with a lick of paint, because there is like a history to why they made those design choices and things like that. But I think just having, it's almost like a foreground, a midground and a background. It's almost like a little picture. I quite like it now, because it just livens up that area a little bit. It just gives it a bit
certainly
of
a little bit of colour.
Yeah,
definitely. And back down towards where we were the other day at Room 2, when I was there the week before, I popped around the corner, and there's a fantastic mural which I'd not actually seen before, which has been sponsored by Saints Football Club, which is the No Place for Homophobia mural by a chap called Kaes, which is really fantastic. It's got lots of names of some of the locals that have got involved. Just again, it just pumps a little bit of colour in the area. It's all around Northam, so it's pretty, it's not the most attractive of places, but it's just a little pop of colour.
Yeah.
And also just a bit of just to have that kind of support in the city from Premier football teams, pretty, it's quite a brave thing to do.
Yeah, I think this is the thing, isn't it? It's like, as well as having the things that we need to bring money into Southampton and commerce and stuff like that, it's finding the like little opportunities for there to be a bit of like local spirit, like a little bit of colour in the drab areas.
Yeah, I mean, football for the Saints, they're going to be walking over that bridge down there.
Yeah.
Plenty of people are going to see it.
Yeah, and that's very much like a community thing, isn't it, with football? Like, there's a lot of people who kind of have their friend circle, and
well, that's just it. Absolutely, yeah.
That's what we need to like amplify those things. It doesn't have to be like, I was going to say it doesn't have to be that everyone agrees with it. That's definitely not what I mean. But just having like different voices in different areas, because there are different neighbourhoods in Southampton, and it would just be nice if everything was just kind of allowed to speak. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's, there are unfortunately a few times where that gets stifled.
Yeah.
Well, there is that. But I seem to remember there was a church near Bedford Place a few years back where they'd actually paid for a mural to be done in the car park, but the regulars basically disapproved of it and ended up painting over it. And yet it was something that was, it wasn't like tagging. It was a piece of art that was paid for and commissioned. But the punters, the people of the area didn't like it, and it got end up getting painted over. So it's just, it's that thing, unfortunately, where I think because of, particularly with graffiti and street art, it does get that kind of stigma of being,
definitely.
There's a difference between tagging and, art. But, it's one of those arguments that can go on forever, I think, in terms of graffiti and street art.
I think that just goes to show
you get places like Barcelona and places like that, and the artwork is everywhere, and it just becomes part of the vibe of the city. But,
But I think that goes to show there needs to be like a conversation, doesn't there? It needs to be that people know what's going on, and say with the mural that you said about, for instance, like if the residents in that area knew what was kind of behind that piece of work and they understood it and they knew it was going to happen, would they still have done what they did to get rid of it?
Possibly. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that don't like the ones that have just popped up at the train station that are, being council funded and properly invested, and there's going to be, I'm sure there's going to be a backlash. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people that don't like it.
Old farts. Old farts. I know what you mean, but at the same time, I'm like, how can you disagree
how can you not?
With
but
that?
It's
people don't like change as well. That's the other thing.
I mean, so much of art is very kind of subjective anyway. So people are either going to like it or not. But they'd rather much rather have a grey concrete wall rather than a bit of colour in the city, presumably. But you only have to look at what's unfortunately just happened recently with the art cafe at the top of town. Unfortunately, it's going to be closing its doors, which I think is just incredibly sad.
That's been there for a long time.
It's been there for a long time, and it is one of the very few areas which is, again, very community driven. It unfortunately hasn't had a lot of funding. A lot of it's been done, privately, or just through their cafe, or private investors and things like that. A little bit of lottery funding, I think, in the past, but certainly not to the level of the main gallery or the theatres in that area. And it just unfortunately it's just end up being sort of pushed out of that little clique. And it's rent as well, I imagine, is going to play a factor in that. And it's just, unfortunately, it's just got to a stage where it's just not sustainable.
That's so true, isn't it? Like when you say about the sort of clique kind of thing, it's definitely fallen out of kind of the cool places, hasn't it? Because you've got Muse on the other corner, down the road a little bit, and then Beatnik is, I wouldn't say that's sort of part of the, maybe it is, I don't know, because I don't go there.
Oh, Beatnik Emporium.
Yeah, well, just in that area.
I mean, that's been there for as long as I can remember.
Yeah. I think that end of town's just a bit forgotten as well, isn't it? There's not a lot down there, and then you've got newer bars and restaurants, which is why most people go down there. Because even 1932, our favourite cocktail bar.
Yes.
I'll speak for you. It's our favourite cocktail bar.
It is our favourite cocktail bar, yeah.
That was kind of hidden away, kind of behind a hidden door, wasn't it? You ring the bell and they let you in.
Yeah, it was a proper speakeasy.
Not
it was
anymore.
One where it was just very, very hidden. You had to press a little buzzer to go in, which I think you still kind of have to do. But they've obviously realised that, again, they need footfall. They need to get people. They need bums on seats, and so they
painted the gold door.
Yeah, so they've now got a bit more. I mean, it's still kind of hidden away, but they've got a little bit more promotion outside the front.
They've got a light shining their logo, spinning round on the ground right outside.
And they've got a neon illuminated poster now with all the menu and.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Things on outside. I mean, we even noticed the other day walking back that there was some lads trying to go in, and the security was having a bit of an issue at the door, which you just which before you just wouldn't have got. It just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But if they're paying for the rent, and they've they have to make it sustainable, so that's slightly changed again. I mean, you still got places like Belgian Blues, which is still doing a pretty good offering.
Yeah, we went there the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, and it's they've done pretty well actually. Even they managed to sustain it through sort of lockdown and stuff. But yeah,
they do food as well, don't they?
They do food, but those kind of places, you do kind of think, how long Is it gonna? Can they hang on for?
Yeah, it does depend on the kind of local competition, doesn't it? Like what else is going on in that area and what else are potentially people going to switch over to. Because that's the thing with cafes that I always find really interesting, especially with, I guess it's kind of like branding. It's kind of, you don't just go there because, I don't know, say it's got good coffee or whatever. It's like the feel of the space as well and the people that you might see there and all these other things that factor into that decision. And it might be that, say, when Muse came and that was on the corner of London Road, there could be people that moved between those two because whatever reason they decided they liked the other one more. So it's just, you're always going to be kind of subjected to that competition of other brands and other businesses, aren't you, as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Costas and your Starbucks, things like that. The more independent places, the better. But I think Muse actually does quite well. Again, they're often very busy, very good. Usually I think they're quite popular with students, particularly on London Road, because it is,
It's tiny in there though. I don't know how they get so many people in there. People always look like they're like smushed into the window.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty crammed. I think there might be one or two of them though. I don't think that's the only one.
No, it's not. There's one in Portswood, and I think there's another one somewhere else.
Okay.
Can't remember. There's either 2 or 3, but there's definitely 2 of them.
But more of these little independent places we can try and get. But it does make me worry when you do hear about these big developments that are happening, and you just know that those rent prices are going to start hiking, and it will get to a point where the little independents can just go, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, priced up.
There's only so much you can do with a you can't start charging people £7 for a coffee because they just won't rock up.
Yeah.
I know Starbucks try and get away with it, but
yeah, well, yeah, there's a whole thing around that, isn't there? But this is the thing. It's like there needs to be a balance between these bigger new businesses and local businesses.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's just, how do you strike that? It's quite difficult, isn't it, without losing all of the places. I don't know. You can't have an empty high street, can you? What happens if everything goes?
Well, it goes back to what you're saying about the whole community thing. You need those kind of little independent spaces because that's where people will go to hang out.
Yeah.
It's not, places like, Costa, I think is far. I think people do tend to sit around a little bit more in Starbucks, but Costa is very much a go in, grab your coffee, and go again.
Yeah.
People don't really sit around that much. Whereas somewhere like Muse or even Room2 that we were talking about before, people will go and have a cup of coffee and then they'll sit and open their laptop or read newspaper, whatever. And they'll turn up there with friends and they'll sit and chat, or they could, you only have to see what's happened with some craft beer places now, which are almost becoming what pubs used to be like before the likes of Wetherspoons took over. They're much, again, round Southampton, you've got some really good places now, like Beards and Boards. There's the Overdraft that just opened up in Bedford Place. But those places now become what pubs used to be like because people go in there now. There's no joke boxes. There might be a bit of music in the background, but it's not fruit machines, jukeboxes, all those kind of thing, or even in some places DJs and things like that. It's much more sit down, have a nice beer and a chat with your mates.
Sit down and shut up.
But that's where that's what public houses used to be way back when. This is why lots of villages and towns had pubs, because that's where everybody would meet. That's where all the big decisions for what the village was going to be doing or the town was going to be doing were done. Yeah, exactly.
Your country
but that's West Country. Being a West Country boy, but that historically, that's what they were there for. They would meet up and talk about, right, okay, what's happening with that road down the road. What's going to happen at the park, or we need to sort this out, or whatever it might be. But then it stopped. It just became somewhere that people used to go and just. Kids would go and get drunk.
Yeah. And now you get to hear us talking about these things and sometimes complaining and sometimes being productive.
Well, there is that. But yeah, going back to you mentioned branding, and also we were talking about Saints earlier on. But recently I've noticed that the Saints have had a bit of a rebrand, bit of a refresh.
Yeah, I think I saw that on Instagram actually.
So they've done this thing around the stripes of the shirt.
Yeah.
I think they've gone at 5 stripes, which if you lay out 5 stripes equally, you get like a square. So it becomes quite an easy social media kind of shape to work with.
Oh, that's quite cool.
But I think what they found was that previously there was no kind of cohesive styling to a lot of the stuff that they were producing. So obviously social media being a big thing, digital, on all their posts and stuff. So they just had a bit of a refresh. Can't think of the name of the agency that's done the work for them.
Was it a local agency?
Do you know what? I don't think it was, which is quite typical.
Yeah, I think I saw a picture of it because it's about the stripes, isn't it? And I saw a picture of the stairs if you were a footballer, I think it says you're a footballer.
That's right.
You walk out onto the pitch, and it goes up the steps.
So Dragon Rouge, big agency, Hamburg, London, New York, Paris. New York, London, Paris, Munich, everybody talk about pop music. Shanghai, Singapore, Warsaw, not Southampton. Which, this happens unfortunately a lot.
Yeah. Did they actually try a local agency?
Probably not.
Probably not. To not even bother trying a local agency.
Yeah, I mean, even down to when...
Kind of defeats the object, doesn't it, a little bit?
Yeah, I mean...
Even if it was Hampshire or like South UK.
Well, even when Southampton did the cultural bid for 2025, they went with a London-based agency for that as well.
Yeah.
Which, considering it's supposed to be the Southampton City of Culture, we thought was quite shocking not to at least, I mean, I did a little bit of work to try and through Fruitful, we did do some work to try and win it. Arguably, they did actually steal the logo that we proposed, but that's a separate conversation. But yeah, even at the time we thought it was pretty bad that they didn't at least entertain the idea of a local agency, even if it wasn't us. That's not to say that we were bitter about the fact that we didn't get offered it. They didn't approach any of the other agencies either.
Yeah.
So you just kind of think, well, if it's supposed to be about that city and getting a bit of involvement, wouldn't that not have made sense? But anyway, not that bitter.
Not at all.
I did do a little video though, which was for the campaign, and I posted it on my own YouTube channel, and somebody commented and said, "This is way better than the actual one they used." So I was like, "Oh, I'll take that."
Yeah, that's
good enough for me.
Yeah,
quiet win. I think at one point as well, it had more views. My version had more views than the official one.
Oh, they did a video, didn't they?
They
terrible,
did.
Absolutely shocking video. It's like a walk around different neighbourhoods of Southampton.
Yeah. There was a bit of a mishmash.
But they only picked the ones that look sad for some reason.
Yeah, it wasn't a particularly happy, kind of creative, bubbly video.
This is the thing with Southampton.
It felt more like a charity video, like, please give us some money.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
This is the thing with Southampton, is there are so many cool, like, creative things going on and little kind of, like, nooks and stuff where stuff is happening, but people don't hear about it, or they hear about it when it's too late, when it's already on its way out.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the solution is, but it just needs a bit of awareness, and also a bit more kind of involvement, and people trying to like support it a bit more. Yeah,
I mean, we need it. All these little places need it, and not just in Southampton. There's been studies recently where they've, the effects of having arts and culture and museums and places like that in areas where, that it doesn't have to be masses of funding or super exclusive. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest problems with a lot of arts and museums, as it's seen as being something that's, upper class or kind of exclusive in some way,
Yeah.
or too expensive. But there are initiatives where they're trying to reduce tickets and things like that to get families to go to these places. But it's really important, art galleries in particular. There's a thing I saw recently where they've used like headsets, which are usually for looking at REM sleep patterns while we're dreaming, or and just how certain things spike at certain times. And I've actually had people, they've done a sort of experiment, I guess you would say, where people would go around a gallery wearing these headsets to look at brainwave patterns. So how your brain processes art, basically, when you look at it. So sometimes that could be a problem solving thing where you're looking at a bit of art going, like modern art, where you're kind of going, what's that all about? And that would be something else. Or there'll be another bit, which is almost like an endorphin, where you recognise something in a bit of art that you've not seen before. Like there might be an old master painting with a cat in the background that is kind of in the shadows. You go, oh, look. Or, and again, all these little spikes and patterns. The fact that all these little places locally or within walking distance, not everybody wants to have to go up on a train to London to go to an art gallery.
Yeah,
we have got a couple of galleries on the doorstep, but it's more the kind of community-based places. It is places like the Arts Cafe that has a gallery space, or little cafes that have got wall space where people who are just do art in their own time and aren't necessarily professional artists but want their work to be seen, to have a place to go. And it's to make it too highbrow and too exclusive. People just end up missing out, and it has to be something for everybody. It's just important.
I had a really interesting conversation on the podcast, for the podcast the other day actually, and I was talking to James Salo, who was doing the Modesto exhibition in the Bulb in March, and that was really interesting because he studied art and then he went into personal training and stuff like that. So he's got the kind of health and well-being connection through a different business, and he kind of just jumped on this opportunity because he was like, oh well, I thought it would be cool to curate an exhibition. So he's kind of coming at it from a completely different angle to the way that it would normally be done, like submit your work, we'll see if we like it, if we don't, see you later. It's more like local artists, and it's more about whether their work fits into a theme, because obviously everyone's work is different. Like there's ceramicists, there's painters, there's sculptors, there's loads of things, but it's really nice to hear about something happening on like a community level, and it's local, and it's about getting people in who don't necessarily go to art galleries and look at art or buy art. It's like coming for the experience and seeing different pieces of work. And it could be like, say you look at the piece of work from a local artist, maybe you can connect with that in a different way than you could if you hopped on a train to London and saw some work that was created in Germany. And
absolutely. I mean, the other thing as well is, usually if we're feeling a bit low or feel like we need to get out, we instantly think about going for a walk or going to the New Forest or something like that. And in some instances, people aren't actually able to do that. But going to an art gallery or an art space, somewhere that is calm, cool, relaxing, it's somewhere that they can just go, de-stress, be at peace with themselves,
it's changing your environment as well, isn't it? It's getting out of your own experience.
It's pretty, it just makes you feel better. And pops of colour make you feel happy. Everybody already knows that. And so I think it's just these places are really important, and it can't always be about paying high ticket prices for some posh gallery. It can't be. Or sitting on your phone looking at works of art that
you've got no connection.
It goes back to what we talked about before, that tangibility thing of actually seeing the texture of paint and the size of paintings and things like that. you know.
Yeah, that's true actually, because you really miss that in just a photo of something on display in a gallery, because you don't have the experience of being in the gallery, and you also don't have the like visual experience of actually seeing it in person. It's like internet dating
And that doesn't
or
mean
something.
and that doesn't mean throwing soup at it like what happened this week with the Mona Lisa.
No.
But the Mona Lisa is actually a much smaller painting than you think.
It's protected as well, isn't it, from the
It
glass?
was, yeah. It has got
Get...
a glass wall. Yeah, definitely, yeah. Which I think is also just to stop people from taking photos because any flashes bounce off it.
Okay, yeah.
But just as well, really, outside of being covered in Heinz tomato soup this week.
That's funny, isn't it? Not in that sense, like in the sense that to make an environmental process, you would go and try to destroy a piece of artwork instead of, I don't know, something else, like what they did in
like super gluing their face to a rose.
Yeah, like with Extinction Rebellion and like blocking off the bridge with a giant boat or something like that. They're like, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll go to this gallery. There's got a priceless piece of art that can never be replaced, and we'll destroy that, and that will help. Like that will give the message.
Yeah, I mean, but it was on the news. It kind of did what it.
Yeah.
It kind of did what they needed it to do.
But it's just the fact that, like, art, and particularly old pieces of art, have got that level of status. It's almost like that kind of create destroy paradigm, isn't it? It's like you're destroying something to create awareness about it, but when it was first created, I don't know the history of that painting specifically, or I don't remember. I probably did at some point, but it probably wasn't as significant as it is now because it's been around for so long.
Like you say, though, most of those paintings weren't ever. It's a relatively new idea to have art that made political statements. I mean, well, maybe it isn't so much, but certainly those kind of great masters weren't. They're obviously telling. They've always told stories or made some sort of statement, obviously, but not to the extent of trying to rattle the system, as it were.
Yeah.
Because it was usually the system that were paying for the paintings, so they wouldn't. It was usually the politicians and those of the upper hierarchies that were paying for the paintings in the first place.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Art's like we said before, like art and the art kind of area or industry, I guess it is now. It's become so involved and tied into money, and people who have got money can buy expensive art or buy art to begin with. Like the government have got that scheme. Have you seen
in terms of art?
Scheme?
Yeah, in terms of art that's seen by the masses. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and the government got loads of paintings like tucked away as well.
Quite probably.
I'm pretty sure they have.
But I've got friends of artists who just would trying to get their stuff seen.
Yeah.
Is really difficult because they end up having to spend money on gallery spaces, or on somewhere they can hang their work up to be viewed, which they can't always afford to do. And then that means they have to try and sell paintings to actually pay to be able to do that in the first place, or they're having to try and get their art online in some shape or form, which is there's technology side to be able to get stuff either photographed or scanned and then uploaded and then managed, and then how do you then sell it once it's online as well? And you need a bit of money to even do anything like that now.
Yeah.
Or word of mouth, but you're relying on these things.
That's the other thing, actually. Not to keep bringing up all the episodes that I've been doing outside of Inner Thoughts, which is obviously like a mini series, but in the main Inner Avenue podcast is I spoke to somebody else for an episode who is Aidan, and he runs a local guitar teaching school called Guitarzoid, and we were talking about kind of the accessibility of creativity, because he teaches kind of I guess, neurotypical people how to play guitar. But then he also has found himself going into teaching people with autism or various kind of physical disabilities and stuff like that. And it's just really interesting because I hadn't properly thought about what kind of things might hold people back from being able to learn an instrument, because it's not just can you read music or can you buy a guitar or whatever. Like there's so many other factors. Like if you've got that, he said he has a woman that he teaches that had a finger injury and she thought she can play guitar but she learned ukulele.
Oh, I've seen people playing guitar with their feet who have no arms.
Yeah.
It's I think it's one of the, I think it's like a lot of so many creative outlets. I think if it's something you want to do, you will find a way of doing it.
Yeah.
Certainly with instruments, I think there's usually ways and means of figuring out.
Yeah. I think this is the thing. The more we've spoken and the more I've spoken to other people, it's just like even being in a creative industry or making money from your work and stuff like that, or getting the word out there about your work, it's almost like you also have to know a little bit of social media and you have to be able to use a phone. Like say you're an older generation who don't always have a phone, and then you need to have a bit of marketing knowledge, and there's just so many other things that factor into it. It's not just about can you make your work, it's like there's a whole other level to it now.
I think it just goes back to why it is so important to have those kind of places where people can go and actually learn these things and talk to people that are doing it as well. So, skill sharing and things like that in those kind of environments.
Yeah.
There needs to be more, some more, you see the government spending huge amounts of money on things like developments in the city, but then they're not putting it back into things like arts. It kind of is a bit bewildering. It's again that classic thing of money making money, rather than those in sort of the more deprived areas of the city where, there's equal amounts of creativity and a want for doing these things, but they just have nowhere to go or no outlet.
Yeah, we need the resources.
Those resources need to be put in place.
Yeah.
There is, the local council have been doing this So Forward campaign, which is supposed to be about the sort of cultural aspect of the city in the wake of the 2025 bid, but I have to say I think it feels more so backward than it does so forward, because it's just not really happening from what I can see.
I haven't seen that. What they're interested in now is making transport right and making things like fancy for cruise ships.
Yeah, which is all about getting money back in there.
Yeah. People
spending money, but I guess the economy is what it is. I mean, that's a separate conversation altogether. we could be here all day, and politically we don't really go in that direction too much. But not good.
So that's our happy little...
That I was going to say, we're supposed to be trying to keep things up a beat, and it's all gone a bit depressing. But
I think it's an honest conversation, isn't it? It's people being allowed to say what they really think. Like there will be people that disagree with us or have different opinions on these things, but it's again important that everyone's voice is heard, not just certain people.
Well, the more of these kind of conversations need to be happening at all levels, or else nothing will happen. It's very easy for us to sit behind this desk and moan about it, but there are those with who are able to make these kind of decisions that also need to be having these conversations, and if you're
listening,
I was going to say,
or if you're listening and you know someone,
then come and talk to us, because we're wanting to help. As part of why Daisy here set up the whole Inner Avenue thing in the first place, was to open up this discussion of these kind of things happening in the city, and something that is down your road, or
there's someone in your house.
I was going to say, it sounds like a ghost. My house is haunted. I think it's just my plumbing. Not my plumbing, my house's plumbing. My personal plumbing. But we'll cut it down. But having these conversations is it's the only way anything like this is going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And we would like to hear your opinions as well. So if you're watching or listening, there'll probably be social media posts, or feel free to share your thoughts. There's a link in the bio of the Inner Avenue Instagram where you can record a voice message, which would be quite cool if people wanted to send
And
their
if you,
own thoughts.
and even if you you may well disagree with a lot of what we said, but we want to hear those comments as well.
Yeah.
We'll also try and get a few of these links. I think it might be quite a good idea if we can to try and get a few of these links up, or at least in the direction of. So a few of the points that we've been talking about, just so you can read a little bit more about. Some of the things quite interesting. Get a bit more of a deep dive rather than us waffling.
So negative about this. Yeah, no, I'll drop them in the description, and if you're watching the video, then I'll try and pop them in the side somewhere, like just over Dave's face or something. Rude. I'm joking.
So thank you for your time. Thanks for taking the time out to listen to us. I hope it's been interesting.
Yeah, and don't forget to listen to the other episodes of the Inner Avenue podcast.
And tune in next month where we'll have another little update.
Yeah, can't wait to hear all the news about Valentine's Day. We're bound to have some sort of opinion on something.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll find out.
Decent about that. Okay, thanks guys.
Bye.
Bye.